we are 1 week away from the first UFC pay-per-view of 2025. Let's get into my predictions for UFC 311 Makhachev versus Tazukrian. Can never say his name properly. These are main card predictions. Starting off with Kevin Holland versus Reina Di Rida. Reina Di Rida, a former champion from ONE FC, I believe. Kevin Holland, been in the UFC a minute. A lot more mileage on Kevin's body clock here in the UFC, as we can see, 26-12 to 18-2 from Reina. Reina's been compared a lot to Dricus du Plessis. I think maybe because of his build, maybe because of his style slightly, but he lacks that explosiveness and that punch power and that cracking power that Dricus du Plessis possesses. Maybe because they look slightly similar as well in appearance. Maybe it's a possibility. But for this fight, I'm going with Kevin Holland with TKO or a KO. I don't see how Reina stops him. We can go here to significant strikes. Kevin lands more per minute. Landed per minute. Yeah, he lands more per minute. Reina does land more significant strikes. Kevin absorbs more and has a slightly better defense, but in a stand-up styles make fights, I think Kevin outguns him in that department. Kevin, so he's a bit inconsistent with his performances. He's not always showing up to the best of his ability. And if you take Kevin Holland from one fight and put him against Kevin Holland from another fight, it usually goes back and forth in terms of who will win that. If he just takes on himself, he's somewhat his own worst enemy sometimes, but still, nonetheless, a very entertaining fighter. I think I'm going with Kevin Holland with KO or TKO. I think Reina's main opportunity is going to be in the grappling department. I don't really see how he can outgun Kevin in that department. Kevin as well is a great grappler himself. He's had some nasty submission wins. You can see here, height 6'4", weight 10-pound difference. Kevin will be slightly heavier, I assume, when they walk in. Reach advantage goes to Kevin with a 3-inch reach advantage. And I think Reina, being a former champion as well, also has a lot of miles on his clock. See what the odds are. Yeah, just as you expect on that one. So for the Kevin Holland Reina Di Rida fight, I'm going with Kevin Holland via KO/TKO. Moving next to Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. Is that how you say his name? Moicano. I see Moicano winning this via decision. I think if this was maybe 12 to 18 months ago, I'd lean more towards Beneil. But Beneil has a lot more miles on his clock now. If this was 12 to 18 months ago, I'd go with Beneil. But given the recent track records and what Renato was able to do on the floor, I'm leaning much more towards him. I don't see Beneil from, let's say, 2-3 years ago being able to beat Renato. I think Renato is superior in the grappling department. If this was a few years ago, I'd lean much more towards Beneil, but he just seems to be slightly losing his edge a bit. I think Father Time reigns undefeated, even though they are, I think, both in their mid-30s. They're not that far apart in age, but I don't see Beneil walking away with a victory on this one. Unfortunately, Father Time reigns undefeated, and I think his body clock seems to be running a bit quicker than Renato. But I'm going with Renato via decision, and the reason for that is because Beneil, despite my opinion on his ground game, he actually does have really good takedown defense. Yeah, he got 80% takedown defense. Very, very slippery, particularly up against the cage. He knows how to get himself out of situations. But I think the control time and the ground time, maybe even a submission win, but like I said, Beneil is a veteran of getting out of situations. He knows his way around the ground. I think Renato just outguns him in that situation and secures a decision victory. Moving on, Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Alex Pereira is a looming figure in this fight. I think, in my opinion, I'm going to go with Yuri Prochazka winning via either TKO or KO. Probably TKO, in my opinion. I think Jamal Hill is seriously underestimating Yuri here. He's still very, very salty about the Pereira fight. Obviously, he feels hard done by. He's still inviting people to the gym to fight him who think that, he got outgunned. He believes he got caught. I think the vast majority of people just know that if it was to go again, if they were to run that back, it was going to be the same result. Maybe a round later, regardless. But Yuri Prochazka has a lot more miles on his clock, but I think in this situation he is his own worst enemy. It depends what version of himself is going to show up that night. He had a very, very bad knockout against Pereira. Very bad. He had to have 3-4 people help him up onto the floor in the middle of the octagon, and that could be a sign that the iron chin is getting up there in years, which happens to all fighters. But I think Jamal Hill is underestimating Yuri here, and I think Yuri is gonna go in, and he's gonna that nasty looping right hand he throws. I think that's gonna reign supreme here, and I think I'm gonna go with Yuri via KO and TKO. Reason for that: Jamal Hill, his hand, both their defenses aren't the best, but Jamal Hill's hands are always down, man. They're always down, and I think if you combine his hands always being down and the fact that he may be underestimating Yuri, maybe he feels like his knockout against Pereira is more significant, more detrimental and significant than his. I think Yuri is going to go in there and he's going to seriously surprise him. So that's my official prediction for this one. Yuri Prochazka via KO or TKO. Alright, now we are heating things up. The co-main, Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Magomedov. Great fight. Really excited for this one. This could have been a main event on its own. Both very evenly matched. Similar records. Merab has 4 more fights, 4 losses. Umar with 18 fights and 18 wins. Umar Magomedov, you may recognize that second name. He's Khabib's cousin. Many in the camp from the AKA gym and the whole Eagles MMA gym say that Umar is the most naturally talented one in the gym, which is insane when you look at the roster of the gym and 2 of the fighters ended up becoming number 1 pound for pound fighters in the world. So for them to say that he is the most naturally talented is saying a whole lot. Also, not many losses come from that camp. Not many losses come from Eagles MMA and AKA. There is one thing underlying here. Umar does have an arm injury, which initially he said that he wasn't going to take a fight early in the year, and then when this opportunity popped up, he jumped on it. So that is a question of how much does his arm bother him. Merab coming off that win. That was 306, yes, the O'Malley versus Dvalishvili there. Coming off a dominant performance there, except for the kisses. That was a bit weird to start kissing a guy in the middle of the fight. But Merab Dvalishvili coming off that win, he's feeling himself. He feels disrespected by Umar. But my prediction for this fight, I'm going with Umar Magomedov via decision. Reason for that, I think they're both quite fairly matched in the wrestling department. I think this is going to be a wrestling masterclass. Very, very high level grappling is going to be on display here. This is going the distance, I believe. I think cardio is not an issue for either one of these. Merab didn't really seem to slow down at all in his fight against Sean. Umar, haven't really seen him have too many cardio issues. I think the striking is fairly balanced on both sides. landed per minute, significant strikes, absorbed, defense. Yeah, you can see as much as stats can show, styles make fights at the end of the day, and they're both great wrestlers. I think this is going to be a 5 round, highly technical wrestling match. I think there's going to be some significant moments on the strikes, but overall, I think the majority of the fight will be on the ground or up against the cage, and I think Umar slightly outguns Marab in that department, and he is gonna get more of the control time, and I think he's gonna become the new bantamweight champion. I don't see how Marab can win this. Perhaps quote unquote a lucky punch. I think in a wrestling department he is outgunned here. The question that is underlying here is Umar's injury, his arm injury. How much does that impact? How much has it impacted his camp? How much does it impact him psychologically going into the fight? Is it something that's going to be exposed? Is it something that Marab can utilize and capitalize on? Some nasty arm submissions, like Kimuras or arm bars. Um, but I don't really see that being that much of a significance. If Khabib greenlit it and approved him fighting, that means he must have all the information available to him, and he's an ocean of experience anyway, as it is. But also, Eagles MMA and AKA, I always lean towards them for so many obvious reasons, but also it's so much deeper for them than just fighting. It's so much deeper for them than money. It's so much deeper for them than just the accolades or anything like that. This goes all the way down to their soul, and they don't do much else other than devote themselves to their religion and their families and just train. Not saying that Marab doesn't do the same, but there's almost zero distractions in this camp, and they obviously, you're stating the obvious when you lean towards an AKA fighter or an Eagles MMA fighter just because of their track records. But for the most part, I would say that I am leaning heavily towards a Umar Magomedov, and I see him winning via decision, and I think he takes the new belt. All right, moving on to the main event: Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tazukrian. I'm butchering these names, I'm sure. Surprise, surprise, I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev for the win here. I think he stops Arman. The Obviously, what can you say about Islam? Number one pound for pound, has had an amazing run. I think he's approaching on making history. UFC, the longest. Islam Makhachev has the longest UFC winning streak in lightweight history at 13. At 13 win streak for Islam Makhachev, I think he is. I don't really see how he can lose this fight. There was obviously, this is a rematch, and the first fight on his UFC debut was a very interesting fight, a tough night for Islam, no doubt. But that was years ago. Islam has leveled up. The question around Arman is that there was a leak saying that you're not fully committed to MMA, and he said, "Yeah, can you imagine? I was fully committed to MMA." Now, rumors are that he is fully committed here. Could we see an enormous upset? Anything's possible. Anything is possible, but I think Islam is just at his peak. I think he's too well-rounded, and he outguns Arman in every department. His stand-up is incredible. His ground game is, I mean, Dagestani wrestling. So what can you do about that? Let's get into the stats here. 26-1 record. His one loss coming by quote unquote a lucky punch, if you want to call it that. He got caught maybe 12 years ago now, 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Hasn't been caught since. Has had a great run, other than that first Volkanovski fight, which I think went the other way, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. But he eliminated All Out in the rematch, so you can't hold that against him. Takes on all comers, doesn't duck anyone. A great champion. 155, but we all know he'll probably be in the octagon around 180. 185 maybe. He's a big 155. He's a massive lightweight, Islam. Same for Arman. Again, a great fighter. Has had a layoff for a minute now. When was his last fight? It was April of 2024 decision when he is only 28 years old. Islam is 33. But I don't think that makes an enormous difference here. I think Islam, like I said, is in his prime. Islam's probably got another 3 years. I don't really see anyone at lightweight that's going to give him enormous trouble. But I am going with Islam Makhachev. This is a 5-round fight. I am going with Islam Makhachev via late submission. I think he gets Arman in deep waters in later on in the round. I think maybe around 4 or 5, Arman may make a mistake grappling, and Islam's going to capitalize on it. Arman has been out for 10 months. The question is, how is he going to be in the deep waters? We know how Islam is going to be, but I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to a decision. But I'm going to put my neck on the line, and I'm going to say Islam Makhachev via submission round. Islam Makhachev via submission round 4, I'm going to say. I think Arman's going to be a stubborn lump for the first few rounds. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder from the first fight. And he is going to come to fight. But I think Islam is going to be show his class as a champion. And I think he submits Arman round 4. That's going to be my final prediction. All right, and that concludes my predictions for UFC 311, Makhachev versus Tazukarian. Man, the UFC is forcing us to learn names and words and languages from all over the planet. That is the beauty of this amazing sport. I will try and be doing a live stream for this watch-along commentary. So look out for that, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.